Well, hello. Happy New Year. I don't know how your holidays went, Andrew, but I think Association Transformation is coming off a great 2023. The
Yes.
holidays for me were pretty great, pretty great. And here we are, beginning of 2024. I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. How are you?
Oh, you know me. I'm always fired up. It
Oh,
doesn't matter what time of year it is. I'm
what does
always
fired
fired
up
up.
mean to you? I think we may be lost in translation. I don't know what fired up means to you. But anyway, the holidays we survived. We
Yep.
may be a little more tired, we may be a little heavier, we may be a
Oh,
little have a little lighter wallets.
speak for yourself, Lee. Speak for yourself.
You're
But
right,
definitely
you're
the
right.
wallet is a lot lighter, absolutely.
I know. How dare I, but anyway, 2023 was quite a year. Quite a year. I mean, it felt like it flew by. A lot of great new information out there. I feel like everyone became totally reemerged after the pandemic. 2023, we were back.
Yeah.
And now 2024 is really what we do with that information and how we evolve out of survival mode into strategic evolution. And
Yes.
there's been a lot of discussion, maybe the holidays reminded me that I'm not young anymore. I mean, I think of you as kind of an old grumpy man, even though you're younger than me. But
Thanks. Thanks. I appreciate it. Why do I do this podcast? Why do I
Happy
talk
New Year.
about this? Yeah.
Sorry, being nice to you. Being nice to you was not one of my New Year's resolutions. Sorry. But in the association nonprofit world, we talk about younger members like they are the holy grail,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they get elevated. I'm not yet resentful. I'm not yet so old that I'm resentful, but I do have to pick that next category on the survey responses where
Yeah.
I'm not in the range of age that includes the 30s. I now have to only pick the age of range that includes the 40s, and I am starting to get a little bitter about it. But younger members, we're all looking for them. As we learned in 2023 with some of our previous guests, younger members are really our only succession plan.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to start off the new year with someone who has become the the young member whisperer. I don't know. I mean,
Voice of youth. The voice of
the
youth.
voice of the youth. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how the youth. I don't know how old he is, but it doesn't matter because he knows the ways of the force. He knows how we need to engage the younger members. I talk about them, the younger members, like the Google. Like, I sound so old. Okay, let's just jump into this. Jay Daughtry's here, you guys. I'm very
Yay.
excited. Woo! Happy New Year, Jay. Woo!
Thank you.
So Jay is with us, Fontiva ProTech. He's, this expert they bring in, and you guys have been writing papers, you've been doing conference sessions. I mean, 2023 was really the year of engaging the younger member and all the research that you guys did. How did that culminate, and what did 2023 kind of teach you about that topic? Because we need all the info.
Sure. Okay. So first of all, I don't think I'm the voice of youth or the youth whisperer or anything like that.
Would your
Um,
kids laugh at that?
I think exactly.
Oh,
But I do think, as you just alluded to, I have done quite a bit of reading on this, talking to people, interviewing people, putting together these papers and conference sessions and webinars. And it's really the conclusion of it, if we're going to just jump right to that, is that you need to treat your younger members, your next generation of members, differently than you treat your core group of members. And we can certainly talk about more about what that means, but that's the gist of it.
I mean, and I know through Fontiva and ProTech, I mean, you guys sponsored what, 3 different white papers on this? And I mean, you were on the speaking circuit about this. And I wonder, did your hypothesis change from the beginning of your research here to kind of the beginning of the new year?
That's a great question. Well, let's put it this way. We knew that this would be a topic of interest to association professionals. And so we didn't have this master plan when 2023 began, but it seemed like more and more people were interested in it. and that's validated on a few levels, right? It's validated on the number of people who are willing to talk about it, the number of people who are downloading white papers, even the fact that conference sessions were accepted. I won't go into all the details, but in one case, I had submitted a few different conference sessions, and of those few, this topic was the one that was chosen for that conference. So there's just been a lot of interest in the topic, and I think the more we talk about it, the more we realize is there, and the more other people want to know what we're talking about.
So are we going to be chasing these mythical younger members forever? I mean, it has been going on forever, right? I mean, future leaders, young professionals, all the different sandboxes we've created for them over the last, I don't know, 10, 20 years. Has that paid off? Is that the right approach? I mean, you say treat them differently. Does that look different than it did 10 years ago?
Yeah, so I think, 10 years ago and then 5 years ago, we're talking about millennials, and now we're talking about Gen Z. And so there's a new generation entering the workforce. That's changing. I think the thing is that culture always changes, communication methods change. These generations have different expectations. Now you're talking about, digital natives, if you will, right? So they have different expectations when they've grown up with tablets and iPhones or smartphones. All those things are changing. And so I think part of the point is that we're always going to be chasing this, and it's maybe a little bit more marked right now, if you will. But when you talk to a lot of associations and they say things like, oh, the average age of our members is 56, or whatever they say, it shows that they're still not bringing in the younger people like they should. So there is an absolute need to address that.
Are we it's interesting, Lise, because I push back a little bit on what you said about have we not been doing it for the last sort of 10, 15, 20 years. I'm not sure we have. I think 20 years ago, I think the model was this is the structure, this is the style, this is the industry. You're coming into it, and you have to, as a new or early career professional, have got to adapt and integrate yourself. Whereas I think now there's much more of a culture around being mindful and responsive to a new generation's needs, desires, expectations, which I don't think was there when we entered the workforce. I'm not sure I ever felt that any employer of mine was particularly considerate of what I was wanting as a 22-year-old coming into the workforce.
Oh, you were told to adapt and suck it up and pay your dues
pay your dues. It's all that, serve your time, that type of attitude, which was this is how we function. You have to come into this and integrate. What I am interested in, what I wonder is, now we are talking about, and mindful of wanting to be responsive to and understanding what people's expectations are. But are we actually talking to these fabled young people, or are we doing what is so typical of I think, or can be typical, is that we're just talking amongst ourselves in an echo chamber where we're saying, my God, these young people, what do they need? We must do something for them.
And that's a great question, a great thought, Andrew. I think for me, you're exactly right. And that's where it's like, I'm not the voice of the youth or anything like that. But I love this idea that I've heard from at least one person I've interviewed, and they were talking about how they bring some of their young members into board meetings for strategic sessions. So these leaders that may have come through the ranks and been in the association for 20 or 30 years or more are hearing directly from them about their needs and their perspectives. And that's exactly right. It can't just be people, who are 40s, 50s, 60s making decisions for everybody else. So I appreciate that.
I really like that idea of that, integrating is the wrong word, but bringing everybody, the whole, and representation from the whole association around the table. Because I'm also thinking, I've worked with associations where they have young professionals groups,
Mhm.
If you're under 30, join this group. But I often think, but isn't that just perpetuating the problem? Because all we're doing is just putting everybody in these silos where you're all just working in your own little echo chamber, and your perspectives are never shared.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, I think those groups are great. They provide support. They can provide, a sense of community, which I think is a big, big factor for those groups. But yes, I think a lot in the next generation, they are looking for opportunities for education, for mentorships. If they're still in college, they may be looking for internships. So there are those opportunities for those who are 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road or more to kind of come back and help somebody else along with the process. And so it's not just, young people griping to each other or young people, sharing the same experiences, but they are getting insights from others that have gone that path.
So maybe one of the best opportunities we have here at the beginning of the new year is to step away from our assessment of what has been wrong and to look forward to how we're going to approach this differently. A lot of boards, a lot of staff teams will spend time just describing how it's been. And I'm hoping that 2024 is our chance to take action in many areas in the nonprofit space. And this is one of them. So how do we do this? We talk about integration. We talk about, equitable participation. We talk about listening. We talk about bringing them in. What does that look like? Does that mean updating bylaws to include a representative structure from different demographics? Does that include having a representative from your future leaders council report to your, let's talk in real terms here so we can make change instead of just venting. 2023 was the year of venting, and I want 2024 to be the year of doing.
No, that's a great, great thought. I think certainly you can put those kinds of structures in place where you've got board representation, and I can't remember which one of you said it earlier, but I guess it was in the conversation about paying your dues and just sucking it up and that sort of thing. But I think younger people, they want to contribute now, right? And at the same time, they don't necessarily want to get on this cycle where I'm on a committee, I'm serving for a year, 2 years, 3 years, I'm the secretary, I'm the treasurer, I'm the vice president, I'm the president. They don't necessarily want to do all that, or they don't know that they want to do that yet, but they do want to contribute. So I personally am a big fan of getting them involved at whatever level you can get them involved in. And sometimes that might be what you would call micro volunteering. It could be just in time volunteering, but it's not necessarily a commitment for a year. It could revolve around a conference or an event, with social media or taking photographs, right? It could be any number of things where you just need a boost of people, but getting them involved, even if it's for a matter of hours or a day or a week, that gives them exposure to other people in the association, in their professional community, and that can lead to opportunity. So I think that's part of it, is just engaging them where they are and not expecting them to fit into the mold of what our cycle has been for 40, 50, 75, 100 years.
Well, Andrew brought up the topic of listening. Do we really know what they want? And I don't want there to be analysis paralysis. I don't want associations to lose another board cycle, lose another year with more and more surveying. If 2024 is going to be the year of doing, is this about progress over perfection? I mean, is it just about pulling some triggers, setting some stuff up and doing it? Or are we advising organizations to listen first?
Yeah, I think you still want to listen first, but you don't have to do a year-long listening tour, right? Get out there, hear your members. I'm a big fan in general of hearing your members where they are, right? Like, I think a lot of times we as association professionals hear our members, but it's in the context of a committee, it's in the context of a conference. But associations that go out to their members' workplaces are seeing and hearing things, right? Like, I saw somebody on LinkedIn recently, and they'd gone out to see their members, and they're in a warehouse wearing a hard hat. And it's like, that's where they're going to really understand what their members are facing and what's happening in those professions or those industries. And so you got to be out there listening. But to the other part of progress versus perfection, this is a long game, right? This is not just how do I get more 20-year-olds or 25-year-olds in my association. It's how do I appeal to them at whatever level they're at and nurture them and guide them so that in the future, they're going to be contributing and adding value to what the association as a whole is doing. So it's not just this instant, here's what's going to happen in the next 6 months and 12 months, and it's going to all change. It's really got to be about what are we building for the future. So that does indicate progress, and we're gonna continue to refine it.
And I think it's interesting, Lisa, you say, is this not the year of listening, the year of doing? Oh, why do we always have to, not we, but why is it always understood that we just do things in these chunks of, have to listen?
We're Americans, we're all or nothing.
Now we're going to do, and it's like, well, can't we? And I think this points to, again, this is a much bigger sort of conversation around the sophistication of communications and engagement with membership generally, not just with a particular sort of demographic. Listening is doing. And I think it's about us, and I think, Jay, you've said that, those organizations that are kind of reaching out on a more, who are just being clever about how they're talking and listening at the same time, how they're just having conversations, and it's all just part of the holistic approach to leading an organization, developing business and delivering business as you go along. I just think this whole, and member surveys are apart from being what were the bane of my life once upon a time, it's just like, it's also very structured. And quite frankly, the people we're talking about, the demographic that we're talking about, they don't necessarily respond to that kind of, what's it? I can't think of
those solicitations. But the point is, they did 2 or 3 years ago and nothing changed. That's what I don't want.
Oh, yeah, no, that's a fair point. That's a very fair point.
That's what I'm talking about, is stop surveying, stop asking,
Yeah,
and start doing something with what you've been told. That's all I'm saying. Because if people want to, if people want to make a difference now, they also want to see results now. Their ambition for themselves is probably only matched by their expectations of others.
But then this is just a question about how agile and flexible and responsive are associations generally, and how we need to stop being oil tankers and start being speedboats.
Yeah, I think the other thing I think about too is, and I think you alluded to this, Andrew, is this idea of like how we're communicating with them, right? And so it's just a matter of, so maybe we don't know how they respond to email, but I'd heard somebody say recently in one of the sessions that I was working with, if you're sending emails, make them shorter, get to the point, right? Like, it's not that you're not necessarily educating them, but they're not going to sit there and read through the whole newsletter or the whole email. You want to do that. And I tell you, one of the things I would absolutely look at doing if you suddenly put me in charge of this initiative at an association is text messaging, right? Like, how do I reach a younger demographic? They're paying attention to text, right? I've got 2 sons in their early 20s. And if I call them and they don't answer, I'm not likely to leave a voicemail. I'm likely to hang up the phone and send them a text message, because I know that's what they're going to pay attention to more. And I think you got to think about those ways, that where they are, what they're doing, what they're listening to, and how they're going to respond.
So what I've taken away so far is, again, we're done venting. We're going to focus on deliverables and bringing everyone together. We're going to break down the silos. We're going to stop putting people in their own separate sandboxes and their own little committees and task forces, so that we can feel like we've done something. And I want organizations to commit to something. One strategic, involvement strategy, whether it's inviting, you mentioned, Jay, inviting that new demographic to the board, or changing your communications channel and your communications strategy, or maybe even going so far as to change your your nomination and your term limit structure so that you don't have to wait 15 years to make it to the board of directors. Whatever it is, however big of a bite you are willing to take, I'm just asking here on our first pod of the year, if everyone can just commit to one thing, just one thing, and tell your members you're going to do it, and then actually do it.
Can I just add to that? Can I just add one thing to that list that you've just rolled out there? I just think,
wait, did I just motivate you? Was that not motivational?
it did, and it reminded me of a board meeting I was in last week. Not last week, week before last, sorry, before the holidays. And we had discussion about composition of the board. And they have members of the organization who are trainees in their profession. Now, they're full members of the organization, but they're trainees in their profession. And they were discussing whether that trainee representative on the board should have full voting rights or not. And I was appalled. I was utterly appalled. And all that does is show an absolute disrespect to that individual or that whole group's credentials, expertise, perspectives. And so for me, I would add, have a bit of respect and and recognize that actually everybody comes to the table with different perspectives, and that's a good thing. But disenfranchising them because they're not the same as you is fundamentally an awful thing to do, but not particularly at governance level, but generally in the organization, because that filters through. Oh, don't bother running for the board because they won't listen to you until you're 15 years time served, as as in that example. So yeah, as you were talking there, Lisa, I felt motivated. I felt excited.
Oh, good. Look at that. See, you're coming around. New year, you're coming around. Jay, what's next for Fontiva and ProTech? I mean, do you guys continue you've basically written a master's thesis at this point. What's next for you in this pursuit of excellence as it relates to engaging the younger member?
It's hard to say exactly what that's going to look like this year, but I'm finding there are still more people to talk to, right? There's still more conversations to be had from association professionals who are looking closely at this. And one of the things I'm giving a lot of thought to and have given some writing to, if you will, is thinking about how new members come to your association. And I mean that on more than one level. There's the one level that says, are they coming straight from college, let's say, or graduate school into your association? Are they going through another career first, right? Like, I think we know that these two newer generations are not going to have a career that they stay in for 30 to 40 years and then retire. They're going to be changing. They're going to be changing a lot, but there's still a path, right? Where did they come from and where do they go? And how do we support them along that way? Even if they're only in our space for 3 to 5 years, let's say, right? Like, what does that look like? And so sort of customizing that and then partnering with friendly associations who are going to be at the front end of that or the back end of that or the previous step or the next step. So there's that. And then, as I alluded to earlier, thinking technologically about where they're coming from, right? Are they finding you through social media? Are they finding you through an internet search? Are they coming to you through videos, through podcasts, whatever it might be? But think about that, and then how do you amp that up? So that's the kind of stuff I'm thinking through and want to look at more closely.
Well, when I do work with a lot of trade associations, and we talk about the next generation of member or that young leader as a member of the association. But what seems to be the true unicorn is that young professional in the profession. Every industry that I work with has listed workforce development, talent acquisition, staffing as their number one challenge, not only now, but moving forward. So whatever strategies we devise in this member engagement piece, I think we should both be learning from and sharing with the members themselves, the member companies, the industries, as they look to fortify their businesses, their industries, their professions for that next generation. This isn't just about membership. This is about the workplace as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like that. And if you look at it, I think associations always have sort of two choices that are not mutually exclusive, but it's like, how do we best support our members and how do we best support our industry or our profession, right? And so to me, workforce development and talent acquisition, that has more to do with supporting your industry. But I think if you support your industry and you support your profession well, you're going to bring in more members. And so that's what you want to do. And so again, I've heard it's not just a matter of reaching down into colleges, but I even heard of a veterinary organization that was targeting middle school students, right? And so they're really thinking about that pipeline that's not going to reveal or result in anything for 8 to 10 years or more, right? So you've got to think long term in terms of these kinds of things. And one of the other things I'm thinking about is this idea for another presentation I've been working on, and that has to do with like, how do you engage the parents, right? Like I think about when I was a high school senior, and I felt like I had some good opportunities, whether it was a career day or whether it was a shadowing opportunity, whatever it was. I had some exposure, but my exposure to careers was fairly limited compared to what I know about now, right? Like a lot of great careers are out there, but they weren't even on my radar as an 18-year-old or even as a 20-year-old or 22-year-old. And so it's like, how do you reach parents who are going to encourage their kids to consider this career and sort of partner with them, knowing that you have their best interest in mind?
Well, and I mean, I love everything you're saying, having spent so much time working in construction trade associations, talking to counselors, talking to parents, there's so many entry points to increasing awareness. And this isn't just a trade association thing, professional societies. I mean, what's the healthcare profession? What's the scientific space going to look like? I mean, Jay, you have a master's degree in educational administration. So I assume you're going to figure this all out by the time we have you back. We so look forward to it. This is never going to go away, and I do hope that all of our association transformation listeners will commit to making 2024 the year of doing. You don't have to stop listening, but let's start, pulling the trigger here. Let's start experimenting. Let's pilot. Let's, incubate some new ideas and see how it goes. Stop waiting. Stop. I don't know, being so separatist.
Stop procrastinating. Stop procrastinating.
Stop procrastinating. Stop. Just do it. This is a just do it year, and I'm very excited to see what comes of it. Jay, thank you so much to you and Fontiva and ProTech for all that you've invested in this research. I hope we're not just trying to boil the ocean here. I think there are steps that can be taken to make change and to live the change that you want. And this was an important contribution to that. So hope you had great holidays. Thank you so much for joining us on our first 2024 podcast. I think we're in a good place, Andrew. I'm excited about the next one. It's going to be a good year.
Always. Aren't you always excited about the next one?
I am. Do people not get that I overamp my excitement because you're so underexcited?
Understated is what I am. Reserved and understated.
Okay. Stoic. Is that how we should spin it?
Yeah, go on. I'll go with that. Stoic and heroic. I love that. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well, the heroic part is your own ad lib. We'll discuss that offline. But Jay, thank you. Have a great new year. We wish you the best. We look forward to having you back. And to everyone out there, please make us one of your favorites. I know podcast platforms are changing all over the place. So find us, make us one of your favorites, join us next time. And until then, put your members and your mission first.